Welcome to the Monsters Among Us podcast. This is episode 29, Tizheruk.
We're definitely heading into some pretty chilling waters today. We're exploring these really frightening stories about the Tizheruk.
Yeah, this creature from Alaskan Inuit folklore. Supposed to be lurking in the Bering Sea, right? Near King and Nunavak Islands.
Exactly. Think about how vast and cold that ocean is. And then, picture something down there that's so feared.
Well, that it became taboo. You couldn't even say its name. Tizheruk. It means the long-tailed one in Inupiaq, sometimes called Palrayuk or Tizikpuk, too.
And for the Inuit people there, this was serious. Not just a story. They genuinely believed it had, well, supernatural abilities.
Like causing bad luck.
Yeah.
Or even death.
Yeah, exactly. And this idea that it could maybe change shape or even turn invisible, that just ramps up the fear factor considerably.
So that's what we want to dig into today, the scary accounts, the stories linked to this thing, using what info we actually have to try and grasp that fear.
Okay, let's dive in. Where do we start with these accounts?
Well, the first sort of detailed record we have seems to come from an ethnologist, John White, back in 1980.
Right, an ethnologist studies different cultures. And White, he spent time with the people on King Island, and they shared some, well, pretty disturbing stuff with him.
And then White passed that info on to Roy P. McCall, the cryptozoologist.
Yeah, the guy who looks into hidden animals.
Yeah.
Creatures not recognized by science yet. McCall put it in his book, Searching for Hidden Animals.
So what was it that the islanders told White? What made them so scared?
They talked about seeing this. Head and neck, sometimes a tail, too, coming right up out of the water. Snake-like, they said.
How high up?
They estimated maybe 7 or 8 feet above the surface. Just imagine that.
Ah.
Suddenly seeing that break the waves.
Wow. Yeah, that's unsettling. But wasn't there something else? Something about attracting it?
Uh-huh. This is maybe the creepiest part. They believe that tapping on the inside of your boat could actually draw the Tizheruk to you.
Oh, man. Just think about being out there in a small boat, knowing that even a simple sound, a knock, could bring this thing you dread right towards you.
The anxiety.
It really shows how much power they thought this creature had. And the fear, it was so real, so deep, that this strict taboo formed. Don't talk about the Tizheruk.
Why? What did they think would happen?
The belief was that just speaking its name could somehow summon it, bring its dangerous attention your way. It wasn't just like a superstition. It felt like a real survival rule.
That kind of deep-seated silence? It says a lot about how much this thing dominated their thoughts about the sea. But it wasn't only the islanders, was it?
No, that's right. McCall later heard from U.S. Coast Guard personnel who'd been stationed up there.
And what did they say? Did they see it?
Well, they confirmed the Inuit belief in it. They said sightings were rare, sure, but the fear around it among the locals, that was absolutely real, something they definitely noticed.
Okay, and this is where it gets really dark, isn't it? There's a specific story.
Yeah. One of McCall's Coast Guard contacts told him this really horrifying anecdote. What happened?
Reportedly, a woman was actually killed. The story goes that a Tizheruk came up, capsized her boat, and she drowned.
Oh, wow. So in their view, a direct fatal attack attributed to this creature.
Exactly. That story, true or not in the literal sense, it shows how the Tizheruk wasn't just some vague myth. It was seen as a real physical danger, a killer.
It completely blurs that line between folklore and, perceived reality. Really chilling stuff. So facing these scary stories, you have to wonder, could there be anything real behind it?
Naturally. What could possibly spark that kind of fear, those descriptions? One idea that's been floated, though it's a bit of a long shot,
Go on.
is that maybe, just maybe, it's a surviving zeuglodon.
Zeuglodon, that's an ancient whale, right? Lived millions of years ago.
Yeah, Basilosaurus is another name. Lived way back, like 45 to 33 million years ago. They were huge, very long bodies, long snouts, big teeth, potentially up to 18 meters long.
Yeah.
Definitely fits the sea serpent vibe.
Okay, sounds impressive. But what's the problem with that theory?
Well, a couple of big ones. First, the fossils we have. They're all from much warmer waters, like tropical or subtropical seas. We have zero evidence they ever lived up in the Arctic and the Bering Sea.
Ah, wrong neighborhood.
Pretty much. And second, they went extinct millions of years ago. The odds of a population surviving, completely undetected for that long, especially in such a different environment. Biologically, it's extremely improbable.
Right. So, cool idea, but doesn't really hold water, scientifically speaking. Okay, what else is on the table? Any more plausible candidates?
A potentially more grounded explanation involves a large pinniped.
Pinniped. So seals, sea lions, walruses.
Exactly. The idea is maybe something like a northern version of the Antarctic leopard seal. Leopard seals get pretty big, up to maybe 3.5 meters.
Okay.
They've got big heads, really powerful jaws. They're known predators, can be aggressive. They definitely belong in cold marine environments.
It sounds more like something that could actually be there, unlike the Zoolodon.
Right. And here's a really interesting part. Connects back to that creepy tapping story.
The boat tapping.
Yeah. Leopard seals have actually been observed being attracted to tapping sounds on boats or ice.
No way. Really?
Uh-huh. So you can see how a real animal behavior, a large, potentially aggressive seal investigating a sound, could get interpreted through the lens of fear
Yeah.
and become this legend of luring a monster.
Okay, that's a fascinating connection. A real behavior possibly feeding directly into one of the scariest parts of the myth.
Exactly. Then you also get these less scientific ideas,
Mm.
like maybe it's some kind of giant worm or even a huge caterpillar-like thing.
You hear those kinds of descriptions and myths from all over, don't you? Giant worms,
You
serpents.
do. It taps into something, like you said, primal, fear of the unknown depths, things that crawl or slither.
But for the Tizheruk specifically.
So the Tizheruk, there's just, well, zero scientific basis to think there's some undiscovered giant invertebrate like that in the Bering Sea. Those descriptions are much more likely drawn from common mythological themes than any actual sighting.
So the possibilities range from extremely unlikely ancient whales to maybe misidentified large seals, plus the purely legendary angle. Now, we've been saying Tizheruk mostly. Did it go by other names?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's very often considered exactly the same creature as the Palrayuk.
Tizheruk?
Uh-huh. John White, the ethnologist we mentioned, he specifically noted that the folks on Nunavak Island used the name Palrayuk for what sounded like the identical animal described on King Island as Tizheruk.
So just different local names for the same terrifying thing?
Seems like it. Basically synonyms depending on the specific community.
Gotcha. And have people tried to link the Tizheruk to other famous cryptids, other unknown sea creatures?
There's definitely been speculation. People have wondered if there's a relationship between the Tizheruk and other cryptids reported, around the Pacific Northwest and Alaska.
Like which ones?
Things like the Wasgo, the Sisudal from further south, maybe even stellar sea ape sightings from way back, or the more famous Cadborosaurus off the BC coast.
Huh. So maybe suggesting a wider pattern of these large, weird, serpent-like creature reports in that whole northern Pacific region.
Possibly. It makes you wonder if there's a common source for some of these legends, or if similar environments just tend to breed similar kinds of fears and stories about what's lurking beneath the waves.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thought. So, okay, we've gone through these accounts, the fear, the potential explanations, bringing it all together, especially focusing on those scary stories. What are the main things that stick with you?
Well, first and foremost, just the sheer intensity of the fear this creature inspired in the Inuit people. It wasn't just some abstract monster story. It genuinely impacted how they lived, how they interacted with the sea.
Absolutely. That reported death, the woman whose boat was capsized, whether literal or symbolic, it really hammers home the perceived danger. It felt real to them.
Definitely. And second, the Tizheruk story is such a fascinating blend. You've got what seem like eyewitness accounts mixed with deep cultural beliefs and taboos, and then our modern attempts to maybe find a scientific explanation, even if those explanations are still just, speculation.
It really throws a spotlight on how we try to make sense of the unknown, especially when it's frightening.
And I guess, finally, it's a powerful reminder of how belief itself works. How encounters with real animals, maybe a big aggressive seal, maybe something else entirely, can be filtered through fear and cultural narratives to become something truly legendary and terrifying.
Yeah, how perception can transform the mundane, or even just the naturally dangerous, into the monstrous.
The power of a good, scary story rooted in a very real, harsh environment.
That is this episode. Until next time, thanks for listening.